spent years in Azeroth, raiding, grinding, yelling at people who stood in the fire. But what if I told you there's a whole nother world worth exploring? Out there, beyond the horizon, there's a place called Middle-earth. One that's older, wiser, and filled with fewer giant shoulder pads. Well, welcome to Middle-earth. Welcome to the Lord of the Rings Online. World of Warcraft and Lotro are both fantasy giants, literally and metaphorically. One's based on original high fantasy. The other is the original's high fantasy's ripoff. But structurally, they share a lot. Quests, raids, crafting, reputations, and mounts. Don't forget auction houses, cosmetics, it's all there. Both games have them. Both have their certain ways of doing things. But it's only in Lotro you get to ride through Rohan with a golden cloak while listening to elven poetry. You can't do that type of stuff in WoW. Yeah, you get to fly a dragon through Azeroth like you're some type of Skyrim dragon tamer. But let's go back to being grounded a bit. Where did WoW even get its inspiration from? Well, a lot can just look and they'll see, well, of course it came from the Warcraft games, Warcraft 1 and 2. But, no, let's go deeper. If you look at most fantasy genres, they all derive from Tolkien. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not just a Tolkien purist and be like, hey, Middle-earth's the only real fantasy and the rest are just ripoffs. No, I know I said that comment earlier, but it's a joke. It's a joke, okay? This is YouTube. We can make jokes here, right? But with Middle-earth and Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings, all that type of things, most fantasy has elements that have been carried over. And that includes WoW. Except in WoW now, you have dwarves, orcs, goblins, and trolls and all these being playable races. And there's just more of like a gray line of which side is good or evil. There's some parts of the game where it's morally like you could tell, yeah, this is the bad guys, these are the good guys. But depending on which alliance you picked, well, that storyline's kind of skewed now, isn't it? In Lotro, there's none of that funny business. You have the clear good and bad guys. To your liking, that could be a good or bad thing. I wish that Lotro would have a monster play section in Quest, but yet we still haven't gotten to that point. Maybe in the future. But let's not get off topic. Where were we? Oh yeah, let's talk a bit about both games and their zone design. Well, in both games, you have personality. Remember how Duskwood gave you the creeps? Well, in Lotro's, just go over to the Barrow Downs, and I'm sure you'll get some of those similar vibes. Did Elwyn Forest feel like home for you? Well, go over to the Shire in Lord of the Rings Online, and again, you're gonna feel pretty relaxed just like Elwood Forest did. Wait. But surely they don't have a Storm Peaks. No way does Lord of the Rings Online have a Storm Peaks. We didn't really get a snowy area in the books. Well, try Forest Shell, for example. Forest Shell is a big snowy tundra, and you have little Eskimo people that are running around, and it is in the books, very briefly. But that's all we need to be able to put it in the MMO. Forest Shell has one of the most beautiful sceneries of the entire game. I mean, look at this Aurora Borealis. Yeah, this is from a game that's from 2007, but yet it still stands up. WoW has tons of new zones. Zone after zone after zone, expansion after expansion after expansion. For some reason, though, Except for the few in Classic WoW, the early days are memorable. The rest are kind of just throwaway content. In Lord of the Rings Online, there's none of that happening here. Every single zone is important. Every single zone gets you further and further into the book, as if you've been transported directly into the text. That's what I love about this game, and I think for you WoW players, even if you haven't read The Lord of the Rings or watched any of the movies, what do I say? Of course you've watched the movies. Of course you've watched the Lord of the Rings movies. You play WoW. Of course you're watching all of the Lord of the Rings movies back to back and the extended editions. So just forget I made that point. But seriously, if you haven't done none of that, you will still find a place in Lotro. Because there's so many similarities, and one would argue maybe even better quality ways to play WoW, but in the Lord of the Rings Online. See, in Lord of the Rings Online, the zones evolve with the story. You see the world change over time. The weather shifts, the music changes, the vibe matures. It's not just a zone. It's a living part of Middle-earth. But the similarities don't stop at the zones. Let's look at the class parallels. So visually side by side, these classes don't look too similar. But if you take a little bit more of a closer look, you got the minstrels and bards, you got champions and warriors, and then you got lore masters and whatever you guys got like 3 different types of lore masters in WoW. But still, they're your guys' ways of saying there's lots of lore masters when there's really only one, but you just separated them into 3 classes. Anyways, let's move on. Then you have the Beorning in Lord of the Rings Online, and you have your guys' new Dragonach player for you reptilian people. Well, in Lord of the Rings Online, we got the furries. I'm sorry. My community hates it when I call Beornings furries. So, Beornings. You see the point I'm making. There's lots of different crossovers. You want to play a captain, well then you're basically going to be playing the paladin in World of Warcraft. You love rogues? Well, you'll adore the burglar. Big on fire mages? The Runekeeper's your guy. They may feel different in combat, but the spirit, the fantasy, the fulfillment, it's all there. It's only here, though, that your healing spell is literally a song. And your tank might be a guy yelling motivational speeches in Old English. You know, some dwarf humor there. Let's move on, though. Surely, Lord of the Rings Online doesn't have the raids and the endgame that World of Warcraft has. Yes, we have those too. We have plenty of raids and what we call instances. Those are our dungeons. And the endgame, yes, I will admit, Lord of the Rings Online, our endgame's not really the goal to the game. See, our game's more about experiencing the world, getting yourself immersed into it, not just rushing through it to get to top level and basically skip most of the game. Side note, though, our raids and instances are still pretty cool. You got WoW raid locations like Ice Crown Citadel, and Lotro raids like Barad Guldur. That's a very hard name to pronounce, so that deserves a like right there. Barad Guldur. See, both games' endgame matters. It's just the way that you execute that endgame that it's a little bit differently. But props due where props are due. WoW perfected the raid formula, and Lotro followed suit. But given its end tokens world and tokens twist, you're not just killing a boss. You're cleansing a cursed king, escaping from collapsing dwarf ruins, or confronting the dark spirit of Angmar. The mechanics in Lotro are legit. It's not just none of that funny business. You got extra health boss mobs that won't die forever and they take an hour just to kill because they have a huge health pools. No, we don't do none of that stuff here. We get some actual raid mechanics. So having said that, your role in class going into a raid's really going to matter. You know, you might not get picked into a raid if there's already 3 minstrels and we need a champion to do more DPS, or need a guardian tank to be helping us in the defensive department. You got that same type of problem in World of Warcraft. But in Lord of the Rings Online, the raids and communities are more so made for world chat or grouping up with your friends, so it doesn't happen as often as a queue finder. Although I really wish we had a queue finder in Lord of the Rings Online. But anyways, there's a challenge for every level, especially if you like wiping on tier difficulty while your healer plays a harp. That's not a harp sound. The 5th reason you should play Lord of the Rings Online if you already play WoW is because the story actually matters. Let's talk just for a second about quest lines from each game. WoW storytelling has been inconsistent as of late. Sylvanus! But in Lotro, story is king. Every expansion, every quest, every NPC has a purpose, and it all respects Tolkien's legacy. Well, for the most part. Well, everything up to Mordor. Yeah, pretty much everything up to Mordor respects it. Past that, you're in the no man's land. You're not just another adventurer. You're a witness to the War of the Ring. It's like playing your own extended edition of the Lord of the Rings films. If I haven't sold you yet, let's talk about some crossover vibes. You got UI similarities, faction systems, emotes, housing, you name it. But most importantly, if you've ever played WoW, you'll instantly recognize similar systems in Lotro. You won't even have to really go through the tutorial, because Lord of the Rings Online was made around the same time WoW was originally made. They came out side by side. Reputation factions, yep, check. Emotes and roleplay tools, check. Player housing, well, WoW tried. Lotro nailed it. Legendary gear, both games have it, but Lotro lets you name your sword and grow it through the story. You add on to like some type of perk system. You really create this legendary item and make it feel like the name. It's supposed to be legendary, right? What's supposed to make it so special? What's supposed to be so cool about it? Well, in Lord of the Rings Online, you can increase its AoE damage or its single target damage. You can make it heal more. You can make it debuff more. You can basically change it to the way you want. That's what's so legendary about legendary items in Lord of the Rings Online compared to WoW. Well, Lord of the Rings Online is like if WoW had a cousin that spent decades in the basement reading Tolkien instead of grinding out Mythic Plus.
Push them all back out of my Ravager. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. And that's just how it's done. And let's see what our loot is. I can't loot. It's lagging. Okay, I made 50 gold. And I got 7 Dragon Isle supplies. That's it. That's all I got.
The 7th reason why you should play Lord of the Rings Online if you're already playing WoW. Because about to make some controversial takes here. Aesthetic and immersion over flashiness. Lotro has a very grounded armor set. Instead of WoW's flashy, flamboyant style, Battle Pass Fortnite Royale thing going on. Not everything needs to glow like a neon lollipop that leaves my tongue stained after I've eaten it. My point is, WoW is known for flashy armor and cartoon physics, while Lotro, we tend to lean more towards realism in our armor sets. No glowing antlers or the armor size of the bust. In here, you actually look like a ranger, a soldier, or an elf of the ancient world. It's subtle and immersive, and weirdly very refreshing. And with every single transmog competition in WoW, you have the communities behind it. So that leads me to my next segue, the communities in Lord of the Rings Online compared to WoW. First, let me get this straight. WoW's trade chat is pure chaos, versus Lotro's concert events in Bree, or their spring festivals and their Oktoberfest that they do. Everybody there is holly jolly and happy, and in the world chat, it's very hard to find some negative stuff to bring you down throughout the day. Just spend a few seconds in WoW's world chat, and you're immediately gonna be depressed and wondering, why am I still 100 pounds overweight and continuing to eat more Big Macs? In Lord of the Rings, we don't care how many Big Macs you've had, man. You've eaten 1,000 in your lifespan? Well, I've eaten 10,000 more. Come on over, brother. Let's have a good time and chill. You can bring your sweaty self over here. WoW's community is massive, but with that massive size, it's also chaotic. Lotro's community, it's like the Tolkien fan book club got internet access. You'll find friendly players everywhere you go, generous kinships, and people who literally roleplay. You can't even play Ents as a race, but there'll be people in Bree just standing there like a tree, using their /tree emote just to roleplay as an Ent and sit there for hours. So to say our community's chill is an understatement. And best part, there's no LFR salt. No DPS meters in chat, just good old-fashioned Middle-earth hospitality, as if somebody just invited you to come over into their hobbit hole. That wasn't a sexual joke. Even though hobbit hole sounds like it could be one, it's not. And if 8 wasn't enough reasons to get you to come over to Lotro, here's number 9. There's no sub! No subscription? No problem. Yeah, in Lord of the Rings Online, you don't need a subscription to play. I mean, you can get all the way up to like level 90 in the game and completely free. Not having to grind nothing, not have to do anything extra to play that completely free. And WoW, that level is 20. Once you get out of the tutorial of WoW, you're already about level 55. That's just a joke. That's just a joke. But you get what I mean. Lotro has a free-to-play system. And store, yes, we have a store, but it's not really like a store. It's just got quality of life stuff. It doesn't really have power gains or anything like that. Versus WoW's subscription model, if you're tired of paying $15 or more a month just to play WoW, well, Lotro is technically free to play. Yes, there's a cash shop, but you can earn a ton of the coins used for the cash shop just by playing the game. We got this system called deeds, and deeds are our way of being able to play the game while earning in-store currency just by playing. I mean, you have entire groups of people who have never spent a dime on this game and have just played it and have gotten every expansion ever released from the store. But regardless, let's say you do decide you want to sub to Lord of the Rings Online. It's already cheaper than WoW, and when you sub to Lord of the Rings Online, you actually get all of the expansions and new release content, unlike WoW. For veterans of Blizzard's billing department, this is a rare blessing. The 10th reason to play Lord of the Rings Online. We've gotten all the way to 10. It's time to just try the dang thing already. If you're burnt out on WoW's great treadmill, or just need a break from saving Azeroth for the 20th time, Middle-earth really is calling you. Middle-earth is calling you to come set sails, to come get into that hobbit hole, to come crawl into the hobbit. There's no way of saying that doesn't sound sexual. Journey through the Shire. You can play solo. You can explore the world for hours. You can join a kinship, ride through Rohan, and take down the Witch King himself. And you'll be part of a world that values quiet moments, long stories, and the magic of immersion. Both games have their place. WoW is the king of theme park MMOs. But Lotro is a love letter to the fantasy-type game that respects your time, your immersion, and your sense of wonder. You don't have to choose between one or the other. You can play both. I know, isn't that shocking? You can play both games. But if you've never wandered through the Shire, you're missing out on one of gaming's best-kept secrets. Roll a hobbit, smoke some pipeweed, and enjoy a game where story still matters.